can't move. I can't move. I can't move. I feel like this. Please help me.
You're fine. Sit
I
up.
can't feel my legs.
Stop playing.
Oh my God.
45 million dollars. That's the largest police misconduct settlement in American history. Bigger than George. Bigger than Rodney. Bigger than any police brutality case ever recorded. And it was paid to a black man who walked into police custody and left paralyzed from the chest down. His name is Randy, and what happened to him on June 19th? 2022 will make you question everything you thought you knew about police accountability, human decency, and how little a badge-wearing officer can value a human life. Because Randy didn't just become paralyzed. He begged for help while officers mocked him, accused him of faking it, and dragged his limp body into a jail cell like he was garbage. And it was all caught on camera. This is the story of 5 police officers, 1 police van with no seatbelts, and 36-year-old Randy, whose life was destroyed in seconds and ignored for hours. What you're about to hear will haunt you. June 19th, 2022. Juneteenth, the day America celebrates the end of slavery. Randy, a 36-year-old black man, was at a block party in New Haven, Connecticut. Music, community, freedom, and then New Haven police showed up. They arrested Randy on suspicion of illegally possessing a handgun, charges that would later be dropped. Remember that detail matters. They handcuffed him, placed him in the back of a police transport van. And here's where the nightmare begins. They didn't secure him with a seatbelt. Think about that. Every single person reading this wears a seatbelt when they get in a car. It's the law. It's basic safety. It's common sense. But New Haven police put a handcuffed man behind his back, unable to brace himself in the back of a van with no seatbelt. And then they drove 11 miles per hour over the speed limit. What could possibly go wrong? Officer Oscar was driving the van. He was speeding down the streets of New Haven with a handcuffed, unsecured prisoner in the back when another vehicle pulled out from a side street. Diaz slammed on the brakes. The van stopped. Randy did not. Watch the surveillance footage. You can see it happen. Randy's body flies forward head first into the metal partition, separating the prisoner area from the driver's section. His hands are cuffed behind his back. He can't brace himself. He can't protect his head. He can't do anything. His head and neck hit the metal barrier with full force. And in that instant, Randy's cervical spine fractured. He was paralyzed. Immediately. Completely. But here's what makes this story absolutely enraging. What happened next. The body camera footage captures what Randy said in the moments after impact. I can't move. I'm going to die like this. Please, please, please help me. Read that again. A man is paralyzed. He knows something is catastrophically wrong, and he's begging for help. Now let me tell you what the 5 police officers did in response. Nothing. Actually, worse than nothing. They accused him of being drunk. They said he was faking his injuries. They mocked him. Officer Jocelyn, Officer Luis, Officer Oscar, Officer Ronald, Sergeant Betsy. 5 trained law enforcement officers. 5 people whose job is to protect and serve. 5 human beings who heard a man say, "I'm going to die," and chose not to believe him. When they arrived at the New Haven Police Department Detention Center, Randy was still in the van, unable to move. The officers opened the door. And instead of calling an ambulance immediately, instead of treating this like the medical emergency, it obviously was they dragged Randy out of the van by his feet. Surveillance footage shows it all. His limp body being pulled across the pavement. His head was bouncing. No care, no compassion, no humanity. They dragged him into a holding cell and left him there, a paralyzed man, in a cell, waiting for medical help that should have arrived the second. He said, "I can't move." How long did they make him wait? We don't know exactly, but we know it was long enough for Randy to suffer permanent, life-altering damage that could have been minimized with immediate medical intervention. This wasn't just negligence. This was cruelty. Remember those weapons charges Randy was arrested for? The ones that justified putting him in that van in the first place? They were dropped. October 2022. For months after he was paralyzed. Translation: Randy was innocent. He was at a Juneteenth celebration. He was arrested on charges that didn't stick. He was thrown into a van without a seatbelt. He was paralyzed because of police recklessness. He was mocked when he begged for help. He was dragged into a cell like an animal, all because the police suspected he might have a gun, and he didn't. So let's be clear about what happened. An innocent black man was permanently paralyzed because 5 police officers couldn't be bothered to follow basic safety protocols or treat him like a human being. Randy is paralyzed from the chest down. Let me explain what that means for the rest of his life. He will never walk again. He will never use his hands normally again. His immune system is permanently compromised. He has a chronic respiratory condition that will never go away. His life expectancy shortened by 15 years. The cost of providing Randy with basic day-to-day care for the rest of his life? $16 to $22 million. Someone has to help him eat, bathe, dress, use the bathroom, breathe if his respiratory system fails. Randy entered that police weren't able to walk. He left it paralyzed. Forever. And for months, the officers who did this to him faced 0 consequences. November 2022. 5 months after Randy was paralyzed, Connecticut state prosecutors finally filed criminal charges against the 5 officers. Want to know what they were charged with? Misdemeanors. Second-degree reckless endangerment and cruelty to persons. Both misdemeanors. Not felonies. Not assault. Not criminal negligence causing serious bodily harm. Misdemeanors. The kind of charges you might get for shoplifting or disorderly conduct. Randy's family called the charges a slap in the face. And they were absolutely right. A man is paralyzed for life, and the officers who caused it face charges that might result in at most a year in jail and a fine? That's not justice. That's theater. October 2022. Randy and his legal team, led by renowned civil rights attorney Ben, filed a federal lawsuit against the city of New Haven and all 5 officers. The amount they were seeking? $100 million. Not because Randy wanted to get rich, because that's what it's going to cost to take care of him for the rest of his shortened life. The lawsuit detailed everything. The reckless driving, the lack of seatbelts, the failure to provide immediate medical care, the mocking and cruelty, the violation of Randy's constitutional rights. And the city of New Haven looked at the evidence, the video footage, the medical records, the internal affairs report, and they knew they were going to lose. Badly. March 2023. The New Haven Police Department released its internal affairs investigation report, and it was damning. The report found that the 5 officers were reckless, lacking in compassion, in violation of state law, in violation of numerous department policies. This was an external investigation by people trying to attack police. This was the police department itself admitting its officers screwed up catastrophically. The report confirmed everything Randy's lawyers had alleged. And yet, even with this report, the officers remained on the job, still employed, still collecting paychecks, still making arrests. The system was protecting them. Again, June 9th, 2023. Almost exactly 1 year after Randy was paralyzed, all parties gathered for a settlement conference overseen by U.S. District Judge Maria. The conference lasted all day. Lawyers on both sides, city officials, Randy's legal team. They negotiated. They argued. They presented evidence and projections. And late Friday evening, they reached an agreement. The city of New Haven would pay Randy $45 million to settle all claims. It was the largest police misconduct settlement in U.S. history, larger than Georgia's $27 million, larger than any police brutality case ever recorded in American history. The announcement came down late Friday night, and the world took notice. Let's talk about where that $45 million comes from. $30 million covered by the city's insurance. $15 million paid directly by the city of New Haven, i.e., taxpayers. Randy's attorney, Lou Rubano, was clear about what the settlement represented. We extracted every single cent that we could possibly extract from the city of New Haven so that Randy could live life the best he can based on his current condition. But there is no amount of money in the world that can justify these horrific injuries that he has sustained. $45 million sounds like a lot, and it is. But remember, $16 to $22 million of that will go to Randy's basic care for the rest of his life. Medical bills, physical therapy, in-home care, specialized equipment. This isn't a lottery win. This is compensation for a life destroyed. June 7th, 2023. 2 days before the settlement was announced. The New Haven Board of Police Commissioners voted to fire 2 of the 5 officers involved, Jocelyn and Luis. The reason? Violating officer conduct rules on upholding the law, integrity, trustworthiness, and courtesy. Translation: they treated Randy like garbage and the department could no longer pretend otherwise. But notice the timing. The settlement was announced June 9th. The officers were fired June 7th. The city knew the settlement was coming. They knew it was going to be historic. They knew the national media would be watching. So they fired 2 officers, just 2, to make it look like they cared about accountability. It was damage control, not justice. June 28, 2023. 3 weeks after the settlement. 2 more officers were fired. Oscar, the driver who caused the injury, and Sergeant Betsy. So that's 4 out of 5 officers fired. What about the 5th officer, Ronald? Oh, he avoided dismissal by retiring in January. Let me translate that. He kept his pension. He kept his benefits. He left on his own terms instead of being held accountable. For officers fired. 1 officer retired comfortably. 0 officers facing meaningful criminal consequences. That's the accountability we got. Remember those misdemeanor charges filed in November 2022? All 5 officers pleaded not guilty in January 2023. And as of the settlement announcement in June 2023, those criminal cases were still ongoing. No trial date set. No resolution. The officers face civil consequences, getting fired, being named in a lawsuit. But criminal consequences? The kind that might actually result in jail time? Still pending. Still delayed. Still unlikely to result in any real punishment. Because that's how the system works. Cities pay millions to victims. Officers lose their jobs sometimes. But criminal accountability? That almost never happens. The New Haven Police Union released a statement after the officers were fired, and it was absolutely disgusting. The union is urging all members to proceed with the utmost caution in this post-police accountability reality, a reality where they may be deemed reckless just for doing their job. Read that again. Just for doing their job. Driving 11 miles per hour over the speed limit with an unsecured prisoner is doing their job. Ignoring a man who says, "I can't move," is doing their job. Dragging a paralyzed man by his feet into a cell is doing their job. Mocking someone who's begging for help is doing their job. The union's message was clear. Officers are the victims here. They're being unfairly targeted in this post-accountability reality. Not Randy, who will never walk again. The officers are the victims. That's the mentality. That's the culture. That's why this keeps happening. Randy's case drew immediate comparisons to Freddie. Freddie was a 25-year-old black man in Baltimore who died in 2015 after suffering a spinal injury while handcuffed and shackled in a police van. The circumstances were eerily similar. Black man, police van, no seatbelt, catastrophic spinal injury, officers ignoring pleas for help. Freddie died. Randy survived, but will live the rest of his life paralyzed. After Freddie's death, cities across America promised reform. They promised to secure prisoners in transport vehicles. They promised accountability. 7 years later, Randy proved those promises were worthless. Connecticut state legislature finally passed a law requiring seatbelts for all prisoners being transported. It passed in June 2023, a full year after Randy was paralyzed. How many Randy-esque could have been prevented if they'd passed that law in 2015? Randy lost his ability to walk, his independence, his career, his physical health, his life expectancy, his sense of safety, his trust in the system. 15 years of his life. He gained physical therapy sessions multiple times a day, a permanent respiratory condition, a compromised immune system, the knowledge that 5 officers heard him beg, "I'm going to die like this," and chose not to care. $45 million is the most money ever paid in a police misconduct settlement. But it won't give Randy his body back. It won't erase the trauma. It won't undo the cruelty. It's compensation, not justice. Justice would be officers in prison. Justice would be systemic reform that prevents this from ever happening again. Justice would be a world where Randy can walk. Money is all the system knows how to give. So that's what Randy got. New Haven Mayor Justin promised changes after the settlement. The New Haven Police Department has instituted a comprehensive set of reforms, updated its policies and procedures on the transfer of people in custody, and required department-wide training on duty to intervene. Seatbelts are now mandatory for all prisoners. Officers are now required to provide immediate medical attention when requested. Training on duty to intervene is now mandatory. These reforms are good. They're necessary, but they came after Randy was paralyzed. Every single one of these reforms could have been implemented years ago, after Freddie, after Sandra Bland, after any of the dozens of people injured or killed in police custody, because basic safety measures weren't followed. But they weren't. Randy paid the price for that delay with his body. Here's what I keep coming back to. Randy said, "I can't move. I'm going to die like this. Please, please, please help me." And 5 police officers, 5 human beings, heard those words and chose not to believe him. Why? Was it racism? Was it callousness? Was it the code of silence that protects officers who don't want to admit a colleague made a mistake? Was it the institutional culture that teaches cops to view suspects as less than human? Probably all of the above. But here's the real question. How many other Randys are out there? How many people are sitting in cells right now, begging for help, being ignored? How many injuries could be prevented if officers actually followed basic safety protocols? How many lives could be saved if police treated people in custody like human beings instead of cargo? The $45 million settlement made headlines. It broke records. It sent a message, according to Randy's attorneys. But what message did it actually send? To victims, if you survive, you might get paid. To officers, worst case scenario, you get fired maybe, and the city pays the bill. To taxpayers, you're funding police brutality settlements instead of schools, healthcare, and infrastructure. To the system, keep doing what you're doing. Nothing fundamental has to change. Randy walked into police custody on Juneteenth 2022. He left paralyzed from the chest down. 5 officers heard him beg for help and did nothing. 4 of them were eventually fired. 0 have faced meaningful criminal consequences. The city paid $45 million. And Randy will never walk again. That's not a justice system. That's a system that values protecting officers over protecting citizens. That's a system that pays money instead of demanding accountability. That's a system that reforms after tragedies instead of preventing them. And until we fundamentally change that system, until we demand that officers who cause catastrophic harm face real consequences, there will be more Randy ES. More lives destroyed. More families were devastated. More record-breaking settlements that changed nothing. The $45 million got headlines. But Randy still can't walk. And that's the only number that really matters. Like, if you believe these officers should be in prison, subscribe for more stories demanding real police accountability. Comment. What should happen to officers who cause this kind of harm? Share this story. Make people uncomfortable. Because comfort is how systems like this survive. Randy deserves more than a settlement. He deserves justice. We all do.